Hi guys, Drug Pasta here again with another Erowid Experience report. Today's is titled 30 milligrams later, I'm still alive. The substance used was 25i-NBOMe, published by Dear Psychonaut. The dose, 20 milligrams orally, 25i powder crystals, 10 milligrams insufflated, 25i powder crystals. Body weight at the time of experience was 150 pounds. Erowid has a note here. A substance in this report might be identified incorrectly. Erowid reviewers question the author's identification of the drug described. Although the report is included in the collection, the substance might be something other than the author believed it to be. Introduction. As you can tell from the title, this isn't an ordinary experience. It was something of a death trip, hell ride, that I'm lucky enough to walk away from. The following cannot be expressed in any real order or time sequence because of the intoxication of a massive amount of a drug resulting in my serotonin receptors to be lit up beyond belief, along with what I'm pretty sure was a hefty amount of dopamine release. I do not advise anyone to do this, and to use extreme caution when using this substance and when using online chemical vendors. Although the latter third of the trip was relatively enjoyable, this was not a fun trip. This report is intended for people to understand the dangers of working with online chemical vendors and to add to the wealth or lack of knowledge on the internet about the NBOMe analogs. Background. Prior to this experience, I had had experiences with the following: LSD, DMT, 2CE, 2CI, 2CT2, 4-ACO-DMT, psilocybin, AMT, 4-MEC, MXE, DXM, LSA, Amanita muscaria, Syrian rue, cannabis, alcohol, and a handful of previous 25i adventures. About a year prior to this experience, I had ordered 25i online from a trusted source, diluted it in water myself, and everything went swimmingly. I had no problems health-wise with myself or anyone else who enjoyed it with me. I had also ordered regular 2CI in the mail from the same source, and it went perfect. This time, I was not so lucky. I was living with a friend at the time, and we had ordered a batch of research chemicals every week. I did it to make money. He did it so he could trip essentially for free. It was a system we were both able to take advantage of. He fronted the money, I'd order, sell his half, and pay him the money back for what he fronted and sold my half to make money. I was unemployed and making enough to sustain myself, so I figured why get a job. So a week rolled around, and after 2 weeks of dealing with 2CT2, I suggested 2CI should be our next batch. We ordered up the 2CI and it arrived a few days later. This chemical vendor I had been working with for about 6 months and never was anything but phenomenal. Absolutely outstanding products and great prices. Even was able to contact a third-party lab to confirm the quality of the substance. To say the least, I was one of his biggest customers and most loyal, so I wasn't worried for a second about the purity of this batch. Little did I know, this batch was mislabeled, and I was about to ingest an insane amount of 25i, and I had no idea what I was in for. Set and setting. A day after the package arrived, I decided to try it out. It was a warm June day, about 80 degrees. I was living with a friend and his girlfriend in their grandmother's house who no longer lived there, but stopped by once in a while. She did not know I was staying there. It got to the point where I was a bit uncomfortable with my living situation and didn't quite feel like I belonged. None of us were paying rent, all just sort of mooching off her grandmother that was paying all the bills, including internet and cable. My relationship with my roommates was crumbling. We get along and are friends to this day, but living together was a bad idea. Different lifestyles and not meant to live together for long periods of time. This day was a decent day, however. The meth heads next door were not bothering us, and we had thought we had some good 2CI waiting for us. The trip. I weighed up 20 milligrams and threw it in my mouth. No matter what I take, I usually let it sit in my mouth for a while just so it hits faster. Not sure if it's a mental thing or not, but almost always works. It was a bit strange. I didn't remember 2CI having this taste. It was obviously a nasty chemical taste, but the bitterness was a bit more pronounced and had more of an odor to it. About 10 minutes later, I drank it down with a glass of water and snorted the other 10 milligram. I felt I was pretty tolerant to 2Cs, being I had taken a few of them in the past in high doses. I knew I was in for a good trip, but not nearly the magnitude that would result. After I snorted the 10 milligram, I noticed something strange. Almost no burn in the nostril. For about 2 seconds I thought, fuck, it's bunk, until I felt the psychedelic energy come over me. My entire vision soon was covered in fractals and I was extremely stimulated. I quickly sat down in a chair and tried to play with a cat, but it didn't work too well. Couldn't even focus on a kitten. I began to think something fishy was going on. I decided to go for a walk, and this is where the trip began to lose its linear structure. I walk out the door of the house I'm essentially squatting in, and the outdoors is incredibly blissful. Everything has a shimmering quality, and the leaves of trees are flowing into one another. It is about midday, and the sun is shining high in the sky. I walk a few blocks to a huge wooded park and enter the forest. I feel a bit cold, which is strange on a warm day. I lose myself in the greenery and the life of the forest. At one point I find myself at the bank of a creek watching the roots of a tree that are intertwined with each other, and the leaves around them. I climb on the exposed roots and lose all sense of being separate from them. I was the tree. I was its roots. It was my job to find and provide nutrients, water, and food for the entire interconnected forest. I felt at peace. I felt as if my niche with nature was finally intact, something I had searched for my entire life. Somewhere in the bliss, I realized that gaining water for the tree meant I needed water myself. I searched my immediate surroundings and realized something horrible. I didn't bring any water with me. I thought I was on a large dose, but was really on an insane, maybe even lethal dose of a research chemical, and I hadn't brought any water when I was going on a multiple-mile walk. I quickly knelt down to the creek and drank out of it. It is gross water, but it fills me back up with life. I again feel wondrous, and soon get lost in the psychedelic bliss. During this sustained amount of bliss, I take more and more gulps from the stream. My only recollection of reality was finding a stream and drinking from it numerous times from this nature walk. The rest is filled with seemingly coexisting peaceful moments with nature. At one point, I was in a tree, another in a hole in the ground covered in beetles and ants, and yet another rolling around in endless laughter in tall grass, along with countless others that only reappear in my memory in dream states or other mystical states. This forest was huge, and there wasn't much to be worried about in the aspect of people finding me. This might have been my downfall. My last glimpse of reality in the forest was walking on a paved trail and realizing I was about to leave the park. I realized there must be something wrong. My temperature is through the roof. I am sweating beyond belief. I put my hand up to my neck to feel my heart rate and relative blood pressure, and it is pounding at over 130 beats per minute. This strikes fear in me, and I think, I need to find water. I soon look around and find an old disgusting bottle of water that seems to have some plant life in it. I pour it over my head and drink some of it. It was my mission to make it back to the house without any break in reality. I knew at this point something was up with the drug I took. I thought to myself, it probably wasn't 2CI, and suddenly I realized that it is nearly identical to 25i-NBOMe. The feeling in my nostril of almost no burn, the immediate psychedelic slam of a higher magnitude than any 2CI adventure in the past, and the dehydration and insane heart rate. It all added up. The walk home is something that escaped my memory, and the next thing I remember is saying hello to my roommate and saying I needed to go to sleep. They each took 20 milligrams orally without holding it in their mouth, and I was worried about them to hell. But I figured if I can make it with how much I took, they could. If I felt like I needed to go to the hospital, I would tell them and they would come with. They took much less than me. I figured I'd be the guide. I walked upstairs and tried to wait out my trip. The house did not have air conditioning, and soon I was lying on my bed in the most upstairs room with a wet washcloth, tossing and turning in bed. My entire vision swarmed with psychedelic visions in a dream state, and I watched a snake devour my arm. I'm not sure what that was about. I was lost in myself, and had no sense of who I was. All I knew was that I was in trouble. This went on for hours. Heart rate now 140 beats per minute, and temperature fluctuations was hell. From extremely hot, my brain felt like it was melting to freezing and needing to be under 1,000 blankets. The mindset at this point was empty terror. That's the only way I can describe it, to be honest. I had no control over my emotions or thoughts. All I knew is I was terrified to death. Then suddenly, I find myself on the couch downstairs laughing with my roommates. I again check my heart rate, and it's at a healthy level. Healthy compared to before, 110 beats per minute or so. I am thirsty, but I have a glass of water right next to me. I'm watching an underwater sea show, and I'm enjoying it immensely. one of my favorite metal bands. Meshuggah is playing in the background and my vision is swarming with fractal beauty. To this day, I don't know how I got down there, or if this whole adventure upstairs in my bed was just imaginary. My roommates were fine from the 20 milligrams they took orally, just said that they tripped hard with a massive thirst and a weird sensation of being warm. They tell me it's 10 p.m. and are coming down themselves. I realize I have been tripping for nearly 11 hours, and I'm tripping at this point extremely hard yet, but at least it's manageable. The remaining 3 or 4 hours of the trip we spent together, watching underwater sea life and listening to Meshuggah. At this point, it was quite enjoyable, and I was blown away that everything ended up okay to the point of tears. I was unable to sleep that night because of the lingering stimulation and emotional stress due to actually being alive. The next few months I had very strong HPPD. All patterns would move if I looked at them for too long. The lights were multicolored and usually took on a fractal pattern. Colors were extremely vibrant and sometimes mismatched. Certain pitches and sounds put me in a strange meditative headspace, and to this day, Dancers to a Discordant System by Meshuggah nearly makes me flash back. Conclusion. This was hell. I don't think you understand hell until you come this close to death. This drug isn't anything special. It's a stimulant with psychedelic visuals and some empathogenic effects. While the beginning and the end were somewhat enjoyable, the middle was a realm of existence I'd rather die than visit again. Just because I survived this doesn't mean you will. I truly believe even 1 milligram more could have killed me. During the moments of which I cannot decipher, I could have easily died from a heart attack or overheating. I will never order from a chemical vendor again unless I have the means to accurately test myself. People have died off this drug, from less than I have taken. I don't know the details, but it seems to be I am lucky to be alive. I'm sure the oral dose killed some of the bioactivity, but again, I did hold it in my mouth for 10 minutes. An average dose is around 500 micrograms. At 30 milligrams ingested, I took 60 hits. I always do an allergic reaction test with 1 to 3 milligrams with every drug I ordered, and for some reason, I didn't with this batch, and it nearly cost me my life. This drug isn't worth the risk. The pretty visuals might make you happy, but they aren't something you can't see on other drugs. There is very little introspection, and the only positive thing I felt was connection to nature, which I can get with meditation or even cannabis. Even if you dose it out correctly, there's much better drugs out there. All I can say is, buyer beware. Even the best sources in the world make mistakes. Even with the most careful users make the mistakes. Stay safe, happy tripping, and never go into something if you're not sure what you're getting. Namaste. And the experienced year was 2012. Gender, male. Age at the time of experience, 20. And it was published February 25th, 2013. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. And let me know what you think. If you have any recommendations or requests, just let me know in the comments. Thanks for tuning in.